Yeah. Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So we have seen pronouns, right? Words like anta, which means you speaking to. Who do I say anta to? Male or female? Masculine, right? And anti, which is female, right? And antum, which is you all. How do you say that in Urdu? Right. Plural, right? Now, how do you say up in Arabic? Up, right? In classical Arabic or modern standard Arabic, on the news, you would say antum. If I'm speaking to a Shaykh, I would speak to him in the plural. That's why we say assalamu alaikum. In real Arabic, which is called pre-classical Arabic, the language of the Quran and of the Hadith, there's no up. You say anta to Allah. So you say to Allah. It's like, sounds strange. Why would you say that to Allah? It's not very respectful, right? That's how you speak in Arabic. So you say, Assalamu alayka, ya Rasul. Assalamu alayka, ayyuhan nabiy, in the tashahhud. It's not Assalamu alaykum, because he's one, right? Innaka to Allah, antum, anta to Allah, etc. So this is used for out of respect and not respect. If you're speaking to a child, you say anta. Speaking to Allah, you say anta. The same. There's no up or etc. Doesn't exist. In Egypt, they'll use the word hazrat. Right? You have that in hazrat. So they say hadratkum. Would your presence like this? Would your presence like that? Right? That's the style they use today. Right? But otherwise, in proper Arabic, the Arabic of the Quran and Hadith, they use the word anta. That's it. Anta. Okay. We use the word huwa, which means or it. We use the word hiya, which means she or it. We use the word nahnu. Nahnu, which means we. We use, what's another word? Hum, which means they, masculine plural. Hunna, which means they, feminine plural. What else do we use? Huma. Those two. Antuma, you two, right? Antuma. We use the word antum, which means you all, right? And the word antunna, which means antunna, you all female. Antunna. Okay? So these are called pronouns, right? Now, in Arabic, what's going to happen? These are all called detached pronouns, pronouns that are by themselves. You see them on a page, and what? They're not attached to any other word. And then there are attached pronouns. So if I get the word anta, which means you, and I add it to inna, I don't say inna anta. I say inna ka. Totally different. Totally different word. Right? Suddenly it's totally different. I'm saying indeed you are. You say innaka. Totally different word. Right? Innakum. You say assalamu alaykum. Alaykum and antum is the same. But it's a totally different thing. So that's called an attached pronoun. Okay, it looks different. Some of them look similar. Like this will just be the same, but it just be attached. So I'll say, for example, innahuma. Innahuma. That's it. So I just have an attached ha as opposed to non-attached ha. It's the same word, but it's just attached. It's just written connected, that's all. But the number of them will change drastically. They look very, very different. Okay? So that's what we're looking at today is attached pronouns, yes?
So in the beginning, when we talk about speaking Arabic, you say that to respect?
Today Arabic there's two types of Arabic that's spoken today. Modern Standard Arabic, okay, and colloquial Arabic. So Modern Standard Arabic is an international language, right, which is spoken formally in Arab countries. So when you write a document, when you speak on the news, you're going to speak in modern standard Arabic. Modern standard Arabic and Quranic Arabic are like 99% the same, but differences like that. In Quranic Arabic, you don't say antum to Allah. Whereas today, if I'm speaking to a president, I would say, Assalamu alaikum, kayfa halukum. I'm speaking to you as plural. That would be respectful. That's like up.
Is that also colloquial?
That's not colloquial. Colloquial, you might throw that in as well, right? But so colloquial is every single country, and even in that country, there is how they actually speak, which is very different, right? So I remember my kids, they had a Syrian teacher, so they're saying khamsi. Like, what's khamsi? So in some places in Syria, any word that ends in a ta marbuta, the fatha before it is very sharp. They say khamsi, sitte. Right? That's how they speak. Like, what's that? That's that area, right? And so if you hear Damascus Arabic is one thing. Syrians who are on the border between Jordan and Syria, totally different. So in Jordan itself, you have those who are affected by Palestinian dialects, those who are not affected, the people who are closer to Saudi, not in Saudi. Kuwait is different to Iraq, even though they're right next to each other, right? It's that, and so there's general things like in general, like North Africa in general, like say Morocco, Tunisia, but it's otherwise like it's quite different, right? It's quite different. And so that's why like some people you might study it, like I want to know actually like in Egypt. Like I have Egyptian colleagues, I understand them like 90% when they actually speak their dialect, right? It's like if you speak Farsi and you speak Dari and Farsi, they're not the same really. There is a difference, right? You're going to hear somebody in Iran saying Nist, like what's Nist? And you're like, is it Nist or Nist? It's like you understand them, but it's significantly different, right? And there are certain words like you get lost, like what do they even say, right? Like you wouldn't say khubi. Would you say khubi? You understand it because khub, right? But khubi is like, what's that? Right? Okay, so spoken is 50,000 different dialects. There's probably like 1,000, 10,000 different dialects, right? But we're not interested in that. But what's on the news, Al Jazeera, is modern standard Arabic, right? Okay. So what we're looking at is this shift. What happens when you get a word like inna, if you get a preposition, if you get a verb and you connect it, how is it going to change? Okay, so we're going to look at on page 28, right in the middle, there's a diagram. Okay, so those who have the book, does anybody not have the book with them? You have the book there? I think you just have the workbook. Is that right? Well, you have the printout? Okay. So we look at that diagram, right? Some of them are basically just connected, and that's all. It's just the writing. So if you look at the plural, it says, for example, hum and him. So it's the same word. So hum is just connected. So if I say their book, for example, right, so if I get the word hum, I get the word hum, which means they. Well, that means they. Okay? If I'm going to say their book, I say kitabuhum. Kitabuhum. Right? That's one way of writing the hair, by the way. Right? I could do it like this as well. I could do it like this. Okay? So that's just one way of writing it. Okay? So that's kitabuhum. Okay? Their book. Yeah, this means their book. So the word they is the same word, hum and hum. But then if I was to say something else like in their book, fi kitabihim, fi kitabihim. And we're going to change the vowel on it, kitabihim. Okay? So the H is a soft vowel. That's why we say things like, what is it? an hotel. They used to say an hotel or an hundred because it's like a soft, it's a soft vowel. It's almost like a vowel. And so what happens is the haraka goes through and you say kitabuhum or fi kitabihim. That him is different to hum. Hum is always going to be hum as they. But if it was their book, or if it was, then it might change from u to e. But that's just pronunciation. That's all. Because the fi is making the word kitab have a kasra because it's genitive. That's a preposition. So therefore now kitabi. And now for pronunciation reasons, you're saying him, not hum. You can also say hum. It's also a proper Arabic to say that. You can say fi kitabihim or kitabihum. So غير المغضوب عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. Both are correct. You can say both. Right? Different qira'at which reflect at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you're in Medina, they say one thing, in Mecca say something else, in Ta'if they say something else. But it's the same word. Just, is it bath or is it bath or is it bath? It's the same word. Just, this is English. That's how it is, right? Is it nist or is it nist? Right? Which is correct. Like, I don't know. Right? I have a fight about it, but it's not. It's just, that's just different words for it. Okay? So ignore that for now because you're not going to see that in Hafs. But fi kitabihim, this is what we'll see. So that him, hum, that's not a big change. You can still know the word. It's still they, their. It's the same kind of thing, right? It's not a big change, right? So hum and him is not a big change. Hunna and hinna, same word, right? That's just pronunciation. It's not a big difference.
Why did he write kitabihim? What's the difference?
One has a kasra, hum, and him.
Yeah.
Nothing, just pronunciation. Is that if it had a kasra before it, you would pronounce it with a kasra, that's all. So that's the only change you're going to see, otherwise the same thing. So what I'm trying to say is hum doesn't really change very much. That's not a problem, right? So that's not a problem to memorize him and hum, right? Kum is totally different, right? Look at antum, right? You, plural, antum. Okay, and then I say, Assalamu alaikum. That's very different. Right, kum and antum. What's the connecting thing is the meme sounds the same, the dhamma sounds the same, but otherwise it's a totally different word. That's a totally different word. That's like I and me. It doesn't sound the same at all, right? So that's kind of difficult. Kum, kunna, and antunna, very different. Na and nahnu, right? So nahnu becomes na. That's very different. I mean, there's a noon in it, but that's very different. So I'd say inna nahnu becomes inna. Our book would be kitabuna, right? He saw us, ra'ana. But otherwise, nahnu is we. Okay? So when it's attached, nahnu becomes na, which looks very different. Okay? And then the dual, huma is the same, kuma, right? Na, and then the singular. So huwa becomes who or he. Okay? So let's look at the word huwa. Huwa goes through a lot of different changes. Because it's a small word, right? Because it's a very small word, it will go through. Who will have 4 different versions. We have the word huwa, that's just as it is. That means he. Okay? Can you see why I wouldn't bother putting harakat? Because every 2 minutes it's going to change. Like, why would I bother doing that? Right? So now I'm going to have 4 different versions of saying who when it's attached. If I say, for example, kitabuhu, okay, and then dhamma, and then in the Pakistani Mus'haf you're going to see this, right? Or they might write it like this, upside down. How do they write it? Like upside, it's like an upside down dhamma, something like that, right? So what they're saying is you pronounce it as if it was this. You pronounce it as if it's long. That's what they're telling you, right? So that means huwa can become who, which is long. We don't write it long. We don't write the wow there, but you write it long, okay? And it could also become short, like abuhu. Okay? And that's not abuhu, abuhu. Okay? So it could be long, and it could be short. Okay? Fi kitabihi. Fi kitabihi. So again, that's how I would write it. In Arabic, I just write it like that. But you would know it's not kitabihi. It's kitabihi, long. Right? So again, you could write it like, they might put a little yeah after it like that. Or they might put a, like this. Right? Put a thing like that. In the Pakistani Mus'haf like that. Kitabihi. So this is long. Right? So this can create a mad. That would not create a mad. Right? Because that's long. So then if there's an alif here, it would have a mad. Right? Yes? His book? In his book, yeah? But the point is this is long, okay? This is long. Fi kitabihi, there's a kind of a yeah sound here. Okay? And then I will explain in a second. Okay? And then an abihi, from his father. An abihi. Abihi. Okay? So what's happening here? We're dealing with a very small sound. That small sound is very sensitive. So it's moving around a lot. Here it's preceded by a dhamma or a fatha. That's why we have a dhamma sound. Here it's preceded by a dhamma or a fatha sound. Ooh. That's why it has a fatha, a dhamma. Here it's preceded by a kasra or ya sound. That's why it becomes he. Here it's preceded by a kasra or ya sound. That's why it becomes he. So that's rule number one. Is it going to be he or who? Well, if it's preceded by a fatha or dhamma sound, it's who. If it's preceded by a kasra or ya sound, it's he. That's rule number one. Okay, now how do I know if it's long or short? And what's the difference in meaning? The answer is there's no difference in meaning. But the reason why it's extended is for the rhythm. For the rhythm. So kitabuhu, as opposed to kitabuhu, which is very difficult to say. Right? And we do that all the time in English. Rhythm is very important. Right? We have a da 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 da. In English, we speak like this. Da 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 da. That's how we speak. And if we don't, it sounds awkward for us. We would say, that's classic Shakespeare, to be or not to be. That is the question. So that's how we normally speak. The rhythm of English is like that. The rhythm of other language is not like that. Right? If you listen to, for example, Italian, my mom speaks Italian. It has a sound, right? You can't say Farid. You say Farido. Everything's like this. Everything has a certain rhythm, right? They have a rhythm. So Arabic has a certain rhythm. You can't say kitabuhu. That's too awkward. You say kitabuhu. It's weird to say that. You have to stop on something. So kitabuhu, right? But this is long. You can say this. Abuhu. That's fine. Because you had long, so short, long, short. That's easy. Abuhu. That's easy. I can say that. Here it's kitabihi. So whenever it's a short vowel before it, it's going to have a long. This becomes long. So this is short vowel, so that's long. Short vowel, so that's long. Long vowel, so this is short. Long vowel, so that's short. Okay? Now in Arabic, it's just a ha. That's why you just write a ha. All of that's already assumed. And that's just pronunciation. Nobody bothered putting a fatha dhamma kasra, and nobody bothered putting a ya or a kasra. They just, you just do it. Just like, how do you pronounce this? How do you pronounce that? How would you pronounce that? That's pronounced as a Z. Okay, why didn't you write a Z then? Because it's the same. It's like you can work it out. How can I work it out? Well, have I learned that this is a voiced and this is unvoiced? Did I learn that when I was 5? Say, no, you just pronounced it. So you go and ask any 5-year-old, is it dog or is it cat? And they're like, why are you asking me? They just do it without thinking. It's complex when you're learning the language. When is it an S and when is it a Z? But when you just learn the language, just how it is. You just write an S and you don't even think about it. It's pronounced in 2 different ways. That's just how it is, right? And so it's quite complex, but it's complex when you as an outsider. From the inside, it's easy. Okay. So anyway, huwa has 4 forms: who, and he, and he. Right. So again, in tajweed, this can create a mad. That will not create a mad. Right. Kitab abuhu. That's it. But this could be, for example, there could be a hamza after it, right? Hamza after it, and then it becomes very long, right? Creates a three count mad, right? Like, okay.
And you mentioned when having fatha, dhamma, which letter are we talking about? Let's suppose if you take the example
So
of
if there is an a or u, so it's a fatha or dhamma sound before the ha, it stays dhamma.
Okay.
If it's a kasra or ya sound before it, so assalamu alayhi, right? So it's going to change like that. So kasra or ya sound before the ha, it will change into a ha, right? So this is just variables of one sound, just one thing, just the variables that it has.
So what would this depend on?
Peace be upon you.
Okay, what about cat?
Assalamu alaykum, peace be upon you.
Oh,
Okay, so that's what's happening with who. Who has, it mentions 1, 2, 3, 4. In reality, it has how many variables? This is the way they wrote it. It has 4 variables. So who, and he, and he. Okay, that's what's happening there. Ha is easy. That's ha. So here becomes ha. That's it. Innaha kitabuha. Assalamu alayha. So here becomes ha. Looks similar-ish, I guess, but it is different. Anta becomes ka, anti becomes ki, and then we have me. The ana becomes a ya. Okay, but it comes again because the ya is a single thing, it has various different variables. So ana changes to, it could be a ya with a sukoon, could be a ya with a fatha, could be a noon with a kasra, like this. And it's going to vary, right? So by default, it's this. Okay, by default, it's this. So kitabi, my book, right? But you say ra'ani, he saw me. So after a verb, you put in this what's called noon and a wiqaya, you put this noon there. The point of the noon is to save the sound of the ya, right? So if let's imagine if I had a verb like ra'a, right? Ra'ani, he saw me. Ra'ani. If I took out that noon, what would I say? And just put in a ya with a sukoon on it. How would it sound? Ra'ay. It's like a very strange sound. Ra'ay. What's that? So you can't, it doesn't sound proper. So when you say ra'ani, the noon just cuts off. That's one sound, this is a new sound. Okay? Yeah, that means, so ra'a is he saw and ni is me. So what's the noon doing? Where'd that noon come from? It's just to break it off from the verb, that's all. But essentially it's a ya, but it's a ya that's like enforced with a noon. It would just, with a verb, you would never do that. You'd never do that with a verb. Yeah. Yeah. Similarly, for example, like you have min, which means from, okay? And then if I'm just going to add a ya to it, it's like, how do you even pronounce that? Min, like what's that? Like you can't even pronounce this. What do you say? Minni. Ah, that sounds nice. Minni. That's something I can actually pronounce. So all of these things are like, how would you put these sounds together? Right? It just sounds really weird. Okay? So minni, you actually use this. Minni. So then you can have 2 noons. Minni. Right? Here, for example, my stick. Asaya. Asaya. So if I put asai, that's a very strange sound. Asai. Like it's too long. So asaya, I can easily pronounce that. So you put a fatha there just to pronounce it. Yeah, that's possible as well. But no, they don't do that. I mean, logically, why not, right? Asani. But that would actually mean he disobeyed me. That's something else. So yeah, so why would you not put a ya? I guess because you can get away with it by just putting a fatha. I mean, Yeah, yeah. So I mean, so I guess this is the easier. This is step one. Like if you can solve the sound problem with a yeah, then you do that. I guess that's the reason. Yeah, something like that, right? But again, what's the logic? It's not really logic because we're talking about what they do. Like that's what Arabs do. You know, you say, well, why do you do this? Logically, why couldn't you say dog? Why couldn't you just say? And I could, right? Logically, you can do many things, but that's not. They just don't speak like that. Okay. Yes.
What's the difference between ya with a sukoon and then ya
Nothing.
with a fatha?
Nothing. This all means me. That's what it means, me. But it's just where is it going to be used? You can't just use a yeah with a sukoon with every single word because it won't sound right. It just won't sound right. So kitab, like what's that? That's not a sound. So there's certain sounds that just don't sound right in Arabic. So ana, so basically I got ana, I attached it to something. When you put it together, how does it sound? Right? So with verbs, for example, you're always going to put the ni there all the time. Right? Yaqtuluni, he's trying to kill me. Right? Or you just always do that because otherwise it'd be weird. Like it'd be like if you said yaqtulu and then you put a ya, it'd be like yaqtului. That's not a sound in Arabic. They don't have ui. That's not a sound. So you cannot say. Right? So you wouldn't do that with a verb or darabay, like he hit me. That's not a sound. So darabani. So you always with a verb you always have that note. Then here with other things, depending on the sound of the word, is it going to be a ya? Is it going to be ya with a fatha? Is it going to be something else? And in reality, sometimes you have a choice. Like if you say my, you can put a fatha or no fatha. So kit sayarati or sayaratiya. Right? Halaka anni maliyah. My money, maliyah. So it's originally mali with a fatha, maliyah, and then they added there's a ha is added just to pronounce it, maliyah. Right. But by default, it's just basically we're trying to pronounce this word. It's a small sound, and so how would you put it with a big other word sound? That's the issue. So you're going to see this as me, this as me, or my, and this as me. All of these things will be me. Okay? And then what else? That's it. That's all it is. So if we look now at at 29, let's try and identify our connected pronouns. Okay, so again, you do not have to sit down and memorize the list because you will see them on every single page of the Quran. So all we have to do is read the Quran and you'll be like, yeah, saw it again, seen it, right? Like the word nace, did I have to sit down and say, memorize it? You hear it so much, right? So you'll see it so much. That's what's nice, right? The Quran will teach you. There's so much repetition of difficult things. You will see it again and again and again, right? So all you need to do is do the textbook, read Quran, and be like, oh yeah, I remember, I've seen that. I've seen it. Right? Vocabulary comes up again.
There is also this ka key mentioned here.
Ka and ki.
Yeah.
So that was ka. So anta. Okay, anta becomes ka and anti.
So do you say like jazakallah for like men?
Jazakallahu khairan.
And
You're
you
saying
say
jaza
ki for
anta, jaza anta, Allahu khairan. So may reward you Allah well. Jaza is may reward. Ka is anta. But when you attach it to the verb, it becomes ka. Inna anta becomes innaka.
So
Okay.
to women you say like jazaki Allah.
Jazakillahu.
Jazakillah.
Jazakillahu khairan. Yeah. We don't talk to women. Why did you thank her, right? The classic husband-wife conversation. Why are you so friendly with her? Why are you saying mashallah? Why are you making dua for her? I'm joking. Okay, so jazakillah. So Imam, it's interesting. Imam and al-Bukhari, he has a chapter in Sahih Bukhari where he says, I can't remember where the top chapter is. But it says, Darda visited so and so when he was dying, not a husband, right? So Abu Darda, he had two wives, one much early on, and then she died. He married somebody else. So the young one, she conveyed a lot of the knowledge of Abu Darda. So she's young. I don't know how old she was, 20, 30, something like that. one of the Sahaba who was old, was dying, and she goes and visits him while he's dying. So Imam Bukhari is like, you can go and talk to a non-mahram, like, as long as there's no fitna, as long as, like, this guy's dying, you can go and ask, hey, I'm making dua for you, etc. Like, it's not haram to say that, right? Don't. So, interesting. Okay, anyway. So, Bismillah. Innaka, so, number one. Innaka, which is originally Inna anta. That doesn't exist. Inna anta does not exist. It becomes Innaka. La rasulu. Right?
So that's if it was in the key of it.
Correct, yeah. Innaki, yeah. Okay, number two. Innaka la rasulu. Who and long, right? Did it say long? I can't see long here. But I know it's long because it's preceded by a short vowel. Rasuluhu. Right? So long and short. So again, imagine reading this with no tashkil and no dots. Hamza just looks like a line. Noon looks like a ta, tha, ba. Kaf looks like a lam. Right? And so you're sitting there with Sayyidina Umar, and he's like, Rasuluhu. And I'm like, how did you know that? So it's my language. That's what it is. Right? You say it like this. Just like if I came along and said, what is this? I said, oh, that's dogs. So how do you know it was dogs? I said, well, because I speak English and it has to be dogs. It can't be anything else. I said, well, how did you know that the S is pronounced as a Z? It's my language. That's right. So there's a code and there's a system behind the code. Where's that from? I know the language, right? And so then what was the very first thing that the scholars did? It's like, hang on a minute. We need to find out what is this thing called Arabic. So they totally killed Arabic. What is Arabic? What are the letters? What are the sounds? What's this? What's that? What defines Arabic? Which tribes can we use Arabic from? Which tribes don't speak Arabic properly because they're affected by non-Arabs? This. What are the sounds that they make? What is grammar? What is morphology? What is every single thing, right? And what are dictionaries? What do these words mean? Right? That was the very first thing, yes. Rasuluhu. Yeah. Luhu. Rasul. No, just the thing straight before it. Rasuluhu. So luhu. Yeah, so it has to be. So if there's a long vowel before it, then it will be short. If there's a short vowel before it, then it will be long. So the long vowel is the lam. The short vowel is the lam. Lam with the dhamma. That's short. So therefore, I'm going to pronounce the ha as if it was ha dhamma wow. Rasuluhu. Rasuluhu. Right. I'm going to add a wow. Right. And you'll see at the Saudi Musaf, I think they'll put a small wow. And I think again in the Pakistani Musaf they'll put a wow. Yes, like this, Rasuluhu. You don't write it. You don't write it, but you do pronounce it, right? And you'd never see that in any text. Like it's only they're doing it in the Musaf for you because you can't read it. You're confused, right? So the Saudi Musaf they have a certain code. They'll put the dhamma in a certain way. Oh, if it's going to do iqlab or ikhfa, the tanween looks like this. Otherwise, like that, that's all just, they invented it. That's how they wanted to do it for that particular print, right? But otherwise, you don't, even tajweed teachers, for example, I was doing qira'at warsh, for example, and the teacher's like, please do not bring a mushaf with warsh. Just bring any mushaf, like just as it is, right? Because then you're going to learn how to do it, right? You about to ask a question? Just pensive. Okay, so innaka rasuluhu, right? Okay, number 3. Good. So notice it's not lahu, it's lahu, right? How did I know that? Because la is short. So lahu ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. Good. So lahu, huwa has become hu, right? And so what does that mean? That's a very important statement. There are many basic statements we say in Arabic that are super unbelievably important. If we understood what they meant, right, it means very important. So it doesn't say in Arabic, ma fis samawati wa ma fil ardi lahu. It doesn't say that which is in the universe, i.e. the heavens and the earth, is his. It says his alone is that which is in the heavens and the earth, i.e. so if I say this pen this pen, for example, belongs to Zaytek. Is it possible that also belongs to me? Yeah. It could be shared. Might be a joint venture. Farid Dingle Limited goes into business with Zaytek, and we have joint ownership of this pen. So I say, هذا القلم لي. Right? This pen belongs to me. وهذا القلم لزيتك. That's fine. But when I say لي هذا القلم, I'm not saying the same thing. That means this pen belongs to me and it does not belong to anybody else. So when you say له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض, that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala owns every single thing in the universe and you don't own it. And nobody else. So Allah alone, you throw in the word Allah, unto Allah alone it belongs every single thing in heaven and the earth, and you do not own a single thing. No, the shift. The fact that you're saying for him, but to him, as opposed to everything is mine and mine is everything. The shift, like إياك نعبد and نعبدك. نعبدك, we worship you, Allah. Okay, I know you worship me, but you also worship these other gods. But إياك نعبد means you we worship, i.e. you alone and nobody else.
Saying that first.
You shifted it, right? In a sense. So it's very important. You don't own anything, right? So nobody owns anything. It's very important. Yeah, go ahead. Ma, what? And then? In. So for him, what? In heavens and what? In earth. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. So when somebody steals from you, have they stolen from you? It's not yours anyway. There's a big difference in frustration. I worked hard for that. Why did you take that away? As opposed to, I'm angry because Allah has let me play with it. Okay, He let me play with this money. And now you're playing with it without Allah's permission. You don't have permission to take it from me. So therefore, your anger for somebody stealing from you and stealing from somebody else should be the same. That's how you should see things. Your anger for the sake of Allah means there's no difference if you stole from me or I stole from you. Or if I stole from you or he stole from anybody else. The fact that stealing happened and Allah was disobeyed, that's anger for the sake of Allah. As opposed to, yeah, but I'm super angry because you said that to me. That means it's mixed. Right? It's not shirk as in that you're doing ibadah, but it's shirk in that it's not. You're not. That's not. That ayah is not in your head, and it's not in your heart. That's for sure. Right? So it's a big thing. Right? Okay. له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض. Number 4. هو في بيتها. So huwa is a normal. He is in her house. في بيتها. Or he was in her house.
Wait, so why is that her house instead of? So what would his house be?
بيته.
Beiti.
Yeah.
Oh.
إياك نعبد. Now here, now we can get any of these words and put إيا before it. So إياك نعبد. إياكي. إياه. إياي. فإياي فارهبون. Me alone dread. فإياي فارهبون. Right? So you can put إياي. That's just a way of basically getting a pronoun that's like this. And how would I put it by itself? The default is these are detached pronouns and they do not exist by themselves. So if you want to use them by themselves for a particular rhetorical reason, you're going to have to put the word iya, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, iyaya farhabun means, and if you were going to have dread, and if you're going to dread anybody, make sure that it is me. But iyaya farhabun, right? And so what iyyaka na'budu. So iyyaka na'budu means not we worship you, it means you we worship, i.e. you alone we worship. Iyyaka. Notice they say ka, not antum. We don't say iyyakum to Allah. Right? We use the word to. That's what I was saying, to. Right? It sounds odd, right? And I think in order do you do that? Right? When you speak to Allah, you say you use the word to. You don't use the word, you don't use up. Which sounds strange because you're so used to talking to, right? You're so used to talking out of respect, and it's like, we don't do that. Right? In Farsi, you wouldn't say Shuma to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Ka, and so iya is a kind of like, so ka is supposed to stick to something. I wanted, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to put the ka before the verb. So it used to be stuck to the verb. Now, if you put, I can't put enter there. So what am I going to do? I put the word iya in its place. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a thing to build it on. It's just something to put it on. It doesn't mean anything. But iyaka does. So iyaka and iyaka means the light of your sun. So iyaka na'budu means, oh Allah, I worship the light of your sun. But iyaka with a shadda on the ya means you alone. There's a big difference. Right? Iyaka and iyaka. Yes, exactly. Tajweed is important, right? You know, and so tajweed is important. Again, why is it important? What does it mean that tajweed is important? Does it mean that I go to hell because I'm not Arab? Is that how it is? Right? Like this letter. How much do you pay me if I can pronounce it? Like it's in Urdu, right? And you have it in Urdu and you have it in Pashto. I can't pronounce it to save my life. Right? I can't do it. Or even they have like even this, that sound as well. I can't do it.